summer, my research team asked more than 1,400 men and women from 16 countries which one of their 5 senses they would least like to lose. Which one would be the most difficult to live without if it were taken away? Regardless of where they were from, their age, or their gender, 7 out of every 10 people said that losing their sense of sight would be the worst. The majority thought they couldn't live without vision, but actually, they could. Let's take a step back and make sure we're on the same page with some of the fundamentals of vision science. We experience a sense of sight because of the connection our eyes have with our brains. We pick up on the brightness of the sun or register the hue of the sky with our eyes. But we only really experience seeing once our brains translate those sensations into something meaningful. Consider the following example. Linseed oil, mineral salts, bristle brushes, linen, and wood are products in their own right, but only when Claude Monet combined them in the right proportions and manner were we able to see the water lilies he painted outside his home in Giverny. Alvaro Pascual-León is a neurologist at Harvard Medical School, and he's famous for discovering what happens in our brains when we lose our sense of sight. He found that the visual cortex, the part of the brain at the back of our head that specializes in making sense of the signals the eyes send it, is incredibly quick to retool when something changes in how our eyes operate. He invited people with normal vision to experience life without sight for 5 days. The volunteers wore blindfolds. They weren't the kind you get in your travel kit when you fly internationally. They were high-tech and lined with photographic paper that would react to light exposure. So the researchers would know that none of the volunteers had seen the light of day, or bulb, since putting them on. Pascual-León and his colleagues used the 5 days of blindness as an opportunity to teach basic Braille. The volunteers learned that the Braille alphabet is derived from bumps that protrude in various places on a 2x3 grid. The letter A feels like a dot popping up in the upper left corner of this grid. B feels like A, but with the addition of the left side dot in the middle row. The volunteers trained their index finger to feel the differences in where the bumps were and how many appeared at once. By the end of the 5 days, they weren't reading Shakespeare with their fingertips, but they had the basic alphabet down. Each day, the researchers also invited the volunteers to lie down in an fMRI machine that would make a movie of what happened in their brains when they read Braille. On the first day, their brains were most active in the somatosensory cortex, the part of the brain responsible for what we touch and feel. Their visual cortex did nothing in response to feeling the Braille letters. But by the end of the 5 days of having no sight, this pattern had reversed. The somatosensory cortex responded less, and the visual cortex responded more when the volunteers felt the Braille letters. In other words, the work their fingers were doing was now registering in the part of the brain that for its whole life had been responsible for actual seeing. In less than 1 week, the visual cortex adapted and repurposed itself to reflect what happens in the brains of truly blind people who are proficient in reading Braille. The visual centers in the brain registered what their fingers were seeing. When Pascual-León blindfolded his volunteers, he was in a sense reinventing the process of perception. The brains of his volunteers still wanted to see, but they couldn't do it with their eyes. He was changing their medium, but they were still artists. When the brushes are gone or can't do the trick, an artist finds a new way to apply paint. Jackson Pollock dripped it from cans. Gerhard Richter crafted a squeegee to scrape across canvas. When Pascual-León usurped his volunteers' sense of sight, they found a new way to see. The amazing adaptability of vision that Pascual-León discovered through his volunteers' experience is an example of neuroplasticity. It's a trick for which the visual cortex has gotten quite famous in the brain science world. But there are more reasons to appreciate our sense of sight than its chameleon nature. Consider its strength. If we found ourselves in a place that was really dark and clear, without haze in the air, we could see a candle flickering 30 miles away with the naked eye. When we look into the night sky, We can easily see the International Space Station 250 miles up, or all the way to Saturn, about 1 billion miles off, if we know where to look.